Hi, it's Pavel again with a C-sharp homework. It's another nested for loops homework. By the way, it's from a book C-sharp How to Program, Chapter 6, Exercise 16. And we will be displaying a bar chart. And what I mean by that is that we will write an app that reads three numbers between 1 and 30, which is going to be an input from the user. For each number that's read, your app should display the same number of asterisks, adjacent asterisks, in other words, one after another. For example, if your app reads the number 7, it should display 7 asterisks. In other words, we will have three lines because we are reading three numbers between 1 and 30. Okay, so first thing we need some variables, of course. Now we need to loop three times. So I will write a constant integer input equals 3. Remember, we are entering three numbers between 1 and 30. All right, so that's our first constant. Our second constant is going to be the character itself, but I'll do it a string instead of a character. Star, well, I'll make it capitalized, star, and it equals to our star. All right, so for integer I, that's the outer loop, which will be looped three times. We could just write I equals 0 and then loop until three times, but this way, when it's a constant, and instead of using some kind of a numbers within the loop, we can simply change this anytime we want, and it will change the loop automatically. So for I equals 0 to I less than input, in other words, 0, 1, 2, it loops three times. Remember, it starts with from 0. That's why less than, if I less than equal to, it would actually loop four times. 0, 1, 2, 3. That's four together. That's why there's only less than input. All right, and I plus plus, of course. And within the loop, we'll ask the user console dot write line, and we will ask, please enter an integer between 1 and 30. All right, and we will hold this integer in a variable which we have to actually declare. Well, I'm thinking what is the best way now. I will need actually three variables, number 1, 2, and 3, because I'll need to store those. Now this would be better with if I just store the information in an array. But if you are following the book, array chapter was not yet studied. It's after this one, I think. So I'm not going to use any arrays or lists, but that definitely would be a better option. Simply store everything within the loop in an array and then display that. Instead, I will take the more noobish way out, and I will do an integer number 1, number 2, and number 3, which kind of deems this irrelevant as a constant, because if I change this, I would need to add another number 4 and change the whole code anyway, but yeah, it is what it is. So let's write console. You know what? Nah, let's do it this way. So it's not even going to be, we don't even need that at all. We will simply write ask three times, or write please enter an integer between 1 and 30, and then our number 1, you know what, please enter 3 integers between 1 and 30. Num1 equals convert to integer to integer, and it's going to be the console.read line on console.read line, like that, and we will simply do the input of 3 numbers in one line. Instead of asking for each number, please enter first number, second, or third. We'll simply do this. Let me see if it's gonna work. I will do console.read line to pause the screen at the end. I'm just gonna test if the input is going to actually work this way. All right. So if I enter 10, 20, and 30. Okay, so it did work a little. See again, I mean, I could enter 4 numbers. 10, 20, 30. Oh, that was just because it waited for. Okay, I see now. Yeah, it takes 3 numbers, and now we will do the for loop to display the output. So 4. Nah, this is not good. This is not gonna work because I could simply console.write line num1, num2, and num3. That wouldn't be any loop there. You know what? Sorry about it. I'm gonna leave this in the video just so you see, why am I going to do what I'm going to do now. And that is, I'm going to do it with the array or with a list, because I like lists better. And you will see why. Even though you may not know what the lists are, you will see the advantage of it very quickly. So I go back to our input. I have the stars. I don't need my 3 variables. Well, I will need one. It's going to be the integer number. That's going to be whatever the user enters. Number. Okay. Now I'll delete all this and kind of start again. All right. So I have my values. I mean my variables. And now I'm going to ask the user for the input, and I'm going to use a loop, like I initially wanted to. So it equals to 0, I is less than input, and I plus plus. Now this is, like I said, we can change this, and it will simply loop more times. If we change that to less, it will loop less times. We could just write 3 here, like this, but it's better to use the variables because it's easier to modify. Now again, I'm sorry, I confused you at the beginning. I kind of confused myself. I think this is going to be a better way. Except this is integer I, of course. All right. Why did I write integer instead of I? I don't know. All right, so we have the outer loop, and inside of it, we will ask the user to enter the number. So console.write line, please enter an integer between 1 and 30. Now we will store this in our number variable, just like we would normally, like I wanted to do, but we do it within the loop. Console.read line. The difference is that I only use one variable over here. It will loop and ask 3 times and store that value in one variable. Now, before I go to another iteration, I need to store this somewhere else, and I'm going to store it in a list. So I'm going to declare a list of integers called numbers, and that will store all 3 numbers. And if you change it to 5 or 10 or 15 or whatever, it will store 15 numbers. That's the power of list. If I used array, I would need to know in advance how many numbers, how many elements I'm going to store in it. List kind of adjusts its size automatically. So it's ideal for this kind of situation. So, and this is how you declare a variable of list of integers. And let's not forget these brackets to call the constructor. I mean, you already had a basic. I hope that you already have a basic understanding of object-oriented programming. So you know the list in C++, C Sharp is actually an object. So you are creating an object, numbers, which is a list of integers. What integers? These integers. We will simply add the number to, which is very handy, function of our method of lists, numbers.add, and we will add that number to the list. So we go, we ask the user to enter a number, he'll enter a number, we'll add it to the list. We go again, ask for another number, he enters the number, we'll add that to the list. And at the end, we have a list of numbers that the user entered, and they are in sequential order from first to last. So all we have to do now is output them. Integer I equals 0, and we can utilize another handy method of numbers of the list, which is count. In other words, how many times do we loop? As many times as there are elements in that in the list. And in fact, let's not even do that. Let's do it even easier and use for each loop, for each variable element in numbers, like that, and we will do console dot write line. No, getting ahead of myself. If I do this, it will simply display the number. Let me show you. It will simply display the numbers that we store. So I'm going to enter 3 numbers now. Let's say I'll enter 10, I'll enter 20, and I'll enter 30. And now, because we wrote the right line, of course, and we didn't write what to write, which we write each element of the list. So 10, 20, 30, and now it displays 10, 20, 30. It actually displays the numbers. We don't need that. We need to display stars as many times as there are for each number. In other words, the first one was 10, so we displayed 10 stars, then 20 stars, and then 30 stars. So this is irrelevant. Another distractions. I apologize for that. Like I said, I'm going to leave it in the video. Just you know, it's my homework. This is how I do things. I go back and forth sometimes, and I'm trying to write, think, and talk at the same time. So that's quite a multitasking right there. Anyway, so let's do the loop. We have to do the loop. So I is less than numbers, the count, like that, like I had it originally, and I plus plus. Now, so how many times are we going to display each star? Well, if I enter 10 for the first number, I want 10 stars. So how do I get that? I will assign the number, not numbers, the number, the integer, will equal to the numbers in other element, and numbers dot element add I. I forgot, I write integer, but I forget I. What am I doing here? Jeez. I and I. So what this does, it will point to the element I in the list. So with the first iteration, it's the element 0. and it will assign that number that is stored in that in that position of the list to a variable number. And now we can loop that many times. So while our number is greater than 0, remember we start, let's say, with 10, so we'll loop 10 times until it's greater than 0. We will write the stars. So console dot write, not write line. We need the stars one next to each other. Star. All right, and we will decrease the number with each iteration. And after each row, we move to the next line. So we need the console dot write line. Okay, so here we grab the number of numbers or elements in the list. In this case, it's gonna be 3 because we have a constant of 3. We could just write number equals I is less than 3, but like I said before, I prefer to use variables instead of numbers directly. So we got the count of elements, and that's how many times we will loop through each of the rows or each of the element. I will assign the number of each in each position on the list to our variable called number. So if I type 10 at the beginning, like the first number, let's say I type 10, 20, and 30, so this will equal 10 the first time. So I will write 10 stars and then move to another line. I go over here to a second line, to a second element on the list, which would be 20. So I will loop 20 times. And then lastly, I will do 30 and loop 30 times. At least that's the theory. So let's see if it's gonna work. So if I write 10, 20, and 30, and you have that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so I trust this is 20 and this is 30. Now we're not checking if it's actually between 1 and 30. You know, if I entered 40, it will happily do that. It will happily take it. You know, 10, 20, and 40. It has no problems with it. I did not do any input validation. You can always do it yourself. You know, simple if statement. If this, you know, number over here, if the number is less than 1 or greater than 30, then do something, you know, inform the user of the error. All right, so let's recap. We have a list. If you've never seen it, it might be a little confusing, but it's basically this list will store all the input that the user enters, which we will catch over here in our for loop. We'll loop 3 times because input equals 3. If I change this to 5, we will loop 5 times, and so it's easy to change. It will tell the user to enter the integer. He enters the integer, and then we'll add that integer to our list. Then we go back and ask for the second number, do the same thing again and again until all the numbers are entered. After that, we have the list with the numbers that the user entered. So we go to another loop, and we loop as many times as there are elements in that list. We start from the first one, which is element 0. We'll assign that value of the element 0 to our number variable, and then we'll loop that many times and display star. Then we go back to our for loop, to the second element. We'll assign the value of the second element to the number and loop that many times and display star. Don't forget to do this number minus minus, because if you don't, you'll get the never-ending loop. You have to keep decreasing it because this would never be false. In other words, it would always go on and on. You need to get a false to stop the loop. All right, so it's actually very short. It's not difficult, especially if you a basic understanding of the list, you will know how convenient this is, to use it in this kind of cases. Uh, if you know nothing about list, I hope it was not too difficult to follow. In any case, I hope it helps you, and I'll see you next time. Take care.